She was 21 and sleeping inside the back seat of a faded silver hatchback parked behind an abandoned grocery store on the edge of a dying town. Every night, cold wind slipped through the cracked rubber around the windows and carried the smell of wet cardboard, gasoline, and rain-soaked pavement into the tiny space where she slept beneath an old brown blanket. Her name was Lily Harper, and everything she owned fit inside 2 canvas bags stacked beside her feet, 3 shirts, a pair of worn boots, an old flashlight, and a small metal cookie tin filled with coins she counted almost every night just to calm herself down. The town around her went quiet after midnight. Only distant truck engines and flickering streetlights remained awake with her. Sometimes she pressed her forehead against the cold window and watched people inside warm houses across the street. Families eating dinner, children laughing, televisions glowing softly through curtains. Things that no longer felt like they belonged to her world. Then one rainy afternoon, while scrolling through listings at the public library, Lily found something strange. An old riverside workshop. Price $1. Nobody wanted it. The roof was collapsing. The owner had disappeared years ago. Most people in town called it cursed. But what she didn't know was the forgotten building beside the river was hiding something that had been waiting decades for someone exactly like her. And the moment she stepped inside, her life quietly began to change. Before we continue, if stories like this make you feel something deep inside, take a second to subscribe. And while you watch, think about someone in your life who struggled quietly without anyone noticing. Because sometimes the people carrying the heaviest pain are also carrying the strongest hearts. Lily grew up in a small railroad town where winters smelled like chimney smoke and wet pine wood. Her grandfather, Walter Harper, used to repair watches in a tiny workshop attached to their old family house. The room always smelled like machine oil, cedar dust, and black coffee. Tiny clocks covered the walls. Some ticked softly, some no longer worked, and some had been frozen at the exact same hour for years. As a little girl, Lily would sit beside him for hours while rain tapped against the windows. Walter's hand shook from age, but when he worked on watches, his fingers became steady again. Precise, careful, patient. Broken things aren't useless, he always told her softly. They just need someone willing to listen long enough. Lily never forgot those words. Her mother worked double shifts at a diner off the highway. Her father left when she was 11. No goodbye, no letter. One morning his closet was simply empty. After that, the house grew quieter every year. Bills piled up beside the refrigerator. The heater barely worked during winter. Sometimes Lily woke at night, hearing her mother crying softly in the kitchen because she thought everyone else was asleep. But her grandfather stayed steady through all of it. Every Sunday morning, he taught Lily how to repair small things. Broken radios, loose hinges, pocket watches bought from flea markets. He said every object carried story. Every scratch meant something. Every hidden compartment existed for a reason. Back then, Lily thought he was just being poetic. Years later, she would realize he meant it literally. When Lily turned 16, Walter became sick. The watch shop closed slowly after that. Dust gathered over the shelves. The clock stopped one by one. The silence inside the workshop became heavier than sound itself. One cold October evening, Lily sat beside his bed, while weak sunlight crossed the blanket near his hands. Walter reached toward the nightstand and handed her an old brass key. It was small, heavy, worn smooth around the edges. There are places people abandon too quickly, he whispered. Remember that. Before she could ask what he meant, he closed his eyes again, and he never spoke clearly after that day. Walter died 3 weeks later. After the funeral, life unraveled fast. Medical bills swallowed everything. Her mother sold the house 2 years later. Then came layoffs at the diner. Then came debt. Then came eviction. By 21, Lily was alone inside a hatchback with no real destination. Some nights she parked near truck stops. Some nights beside churches. Sometimes security guards knocked on her windows at 2 a.m. and told her to move. Other nights were quieter. Those nights were worse, because silence gave memories too much room to breathe. Still, she carried the brass key everywhere. Even though she had no idea what it unlocked, the Riverside workshop sat nearly 4 hours away. Lily drove there with half a tank of gas and exactly $14 left in cash. Rain followed her most of the drive. The highway cut through empty farmland and forgotten towns where boarded windows leaned like tired eyes. By evening, she reached the river. Fog drifted low over the water. The workshop stood near the edge of the shore, beside a broken wooden dock. It looked worse than the listing photos. Far worse. The roof sagged badly. Paint peeled from the walls in long curling strips. One window had been covered with old newspaper from years ago. The building leaned slightly toward the river, as if exhaustion alone was keeping it upright. Lily stepped out slowly. The air smelled like wetwood rust river mud and old storms. Somewhere nearby, loose metal clanged softly in the wind. The realtor never showed up. Instead, an envelope waited beneath the door. Inside was a simple contract. No explanation. No phone number. Just a signature. And ownership papers transferring the property to Lily Harper for $1. She stared at the papers for a long time, then looked back at the building. "What happened here?" she whispered. The river answered only with silence. The first night inside the workshop felt unbearable. Rainwater dripped steadily into metal buckets scattered across the floor. The building creaked constantly. Wind pushed through cracks in the walls with low, hollow whistles. Lily slept inside her car anyway. But the next morning she stepped inside again, carrying her grandfather's flashlight. Dust floated through pale sunlight, leaking from broken roof panels. Old shelves lined the walls. Rusty tools hung untouched for years. Most were covered in thick gray dust, except for one section near the back wall. That part looked cleaner. Not clean exactly, just less forgotten. Lily noticed strange marks across the wooden floor. Thin scratches. Parallel lines. As if something heavy had once been dragged repeatedly across the same area. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the next few days, Lily cleaned slowly, piece by piece. The work exhausted her. She patched holes with scrap wood, collected rainwater in buckets, sold old metal scraps for grocery money. Sometimes she nearly gave up, but every time she considered leaving, something strange pulled her back. The workshop didn't feel empty. It felt paused, like someone had left in the middle of something important. One afternoon, while sweeping beneath an old workbench, Lily found faded initials carved into the wood. W.H. Walter Harper. Her breath caught instantly. She stared at the letters for nearly a full minute. Her grandfather had been here. But how? He had never mentioned this place. Never once. Lily searched the entire workshop after that. Behind cabinets. Inside drawers. Under old tarps. But the only unusual thing she found was a faint smell near the back wall. Cedar. Very faint. Almost hidden beneath mold and river dampness. The exact smell her grandfather's watch shop used to carry. That night's sleep became impossible. The next morning, Lily returned to the back wall. She knocked gently against the wood. Most sections sounded hollow and weak. But one section sounded different. Solid. Too solid. She examined the floor again. More scratches. Circular marks. Like furniture had once rotated there repeatedly. Then she noticed something else. Tiny brass shavings trapped between floorboards. Not modern brass. Old brass. The same dark color as her grandfather's key. Her pulse quickened. Hands shaking slightly, Lily searched through her bags until she found a small brass key wrapped inside an old cloth. For several long seconds, she simply stared at it, then back at the wall. A cold feeling moved slowly through her chest. Not fear exactly. Recognition. As if invisible pieces were beginning to align. She pressed against the shelves beside the wall. Nothing happened. Then she noticed one rusted hook hanging lower than the others. When she pulled it, a loud wooden crack echoed through the workshop. Dust exploded into the air, and part of the wall shifted inward slightly. Lily stumbled backward in shock. Behind the wall was darkness, deep darkness, and cold air drifting upward from somewhere below. For almost 10 minutes, Lily didn't move. The hidden opening revealed narrow stairs descending beneath the workshop. The smell rising from below was strange. Old cedar, metal, river stone, and something else. Something dry. like paper untouched for decades. Her flashlight trembled in her hand as she stepped downward carefully. The stairs groaned beneath her weight. Cobwebs stretched across corners untouched by light. At the bottom sat a small underground room reinforced with stone walls. A work table stood in the center, covered carefully with canvas. Nothing looked random. Nothing looked abandoned in panic. Everything looked preserved. Waiting, Lily slowly removed the canvas. Underneath sat dozens of small wooden boxes, neatly stacked, each labeled with years written in faded ink. Her breathing became shallow. Then she noticed photographs hanging on the wall, old black and white pictures, men standing beside riverboats, workers repairing watches, and one photograph near the center made her freeze completely. A younger version of her grandfather stood beside this exact workshop, smiling. Lily opened the first wooden box carefully. Inside were dozens of gold pocket watches wrapped in cloth. Real gold, some engraved with initials, others decorated with tiny diamonds around the edges. The second box contained silver coins. The third contained stacks of old banknotes sealed carefully inside wax paper. Her hands covered her mouth slowly. It wasn't stolen treasure. It was preserved inventory. A hidden repair and storage business from decades earlier, back when river merchants trusted craftsmen more than banks. Then Lily noticed a leather journal beneath the work table. The cover cracked softly when she opened it. Inside was her grandfather's handwriting. Page after page explained everything. During the economic collapse decades earlier, local workers had valuables inside the underground room because banks had failed nearby. Walter and a few craftsmen protected the items for families traveling to the river towns. Some owners returned. Some never did. Wars happened. Floods happened. Families disappeared. Over time, the forgotten storage remained hidden. Then came one final letter folded inside the journal, addressed to Lily. Her chest tightened instantly. The letter read, "If you are reading this, it means life became difficult again for our family. I wanted to tell you earlier, but some things must be discovered, not given. This place was never about money. It was proof. Proof that patience matters. Proof that broken things survive longer than people expect. And proof that you come from builders, not quitters." Lily's vision blurred with tears. For years, she believed her family had left her nothing. But deep beneath a collapsing workshop, beside a forgotten river, her grandfather had left her hope. The discovery changed Lily's life. But not overnight. The valuables had to be documented legally. Some belonged to surviving families. Some were donated to museums. Some remained unclaimed after investigations. Months passed before Lily received ownership rights to part collection. During that time, she restored the workshop slowly, by hand, exactly the way Walter taught her. An older carpenter from town named Frank began helping occasionally after noticing her working alone every evening. At first, he barely spoke, just nodded quietly while fixing roof beams. Later, he brought coffee, then tools, then stories about the river town before it faded away. Lily reopened the workshop one small section at a time. She repaired watches again. Tiny gears, tiny springs, tiny broken things. Tourists eventually visited after local newspapers shared the story. People came not only for the mystery, but for the feeling inside the workshop. Warm cedar, soft ticking clocks, river wind moving through open windows, and Lily herself, quiet,